types of supervised learning model and unsupervised learning model. In supervised learning model, we basically have the classic neural network, or we can also have multi-layer neural network. That means both of them are similar. Classic neural network, we can call it as multi-layer neural network also. Then we have the second one, that is convolutional neural network, CNN. Third one is a recurrent neural network, RNN. Then we have unsupervised models, in which the first one is a self-organizing map, SOM. Second is the Boltzmann machine, and the third is the encoder. So we will discuss about all these types of models, supervised model and the unsupervised models. The very first one we have here is the classic neural network. Classic neural network means the basic one. It can be also referred to as multi-layer perceptron. The perceptron model that was created in 1958 by Frank Rosenblatt. Its singular nature allows it to adapt to the basic binary patterns through a series of inputs, simulating the learning pattern of the human brain. So this classic neural network was the very first one. What does it do? It simulates our human brains. A multi-layer perceptron, it is a classic neural network model consisting of more than 2 layers. If we have more than 2 layers, then we call it as multi-layer perceptron. Now, when to use this classic neural network? We have different types of algorithm, different types of models, but it is very important to identify that for one particular type of algorithm, which model should we use. So this classic neural network, it is used when the tabular data set is formatted in rows and columns. When we have our data in the form of rows and columns in the tabular form, then we can use this classic neural network. Classification and regression problems, where a set of real values is given as the input. A higher level of flexibility is required in our model. Artificial neural network, it can be applied to different types of data. So that is all where we can use this classic neural network. Next is convolutional neural network. It was designed for image data. The basic, earlier we used to have some text data only. That means we have some data which was written, which could be stored in the forms of rows and columns. Next, as the upgradation moved on, we started having the image data also. So there we are using this CNN network, basically for the image classification. After we have imported our input data into the model, there are basically 4 ways to build the CNN. First is the convolution. This is a process in which the feature maps are created out of our input data. Then a function is applied to filter the maps. Second is max pooling. It enables our convolutional neural network to detect an image when presented with the modification. Next is a flattening. Flattening the data into an array so that CNN can read it. Next is full connection. The hidden layer, which also calculates the loss function for our model. So that is, these are the 4 parts to build the convolutional neural network. Now, again the question comes that when to use it. When we have image data set, including our OCR document analysis, optical character recognition analysis. Input data is a 2-dimensional feed, but it can be converted to one-dimensional internally for the faster processing. So this model, it can require greater complexity in the calculation. So convolutional neural network we basically use when we have data in the form of images. When we are trying to classify our images into different sets. At that point of time, we are using this convolutional neural network. Third is the recurrent neural network. It was invented to be used around the predicting sequences. Long short-term memory, LSTM. It is a popular RNN algorithm with many possible use cases. We have different use cases where we can use this recurrent neural network. One-to-one. A single input mapped to a single output. That means, for example, we can say image classification. What is happening in image classification? There is a single input and we have classified that image into a single output. That means we are doing one-to-one classification. There we can use this recurrent neural network. One-to-many. A single input mapped to sequence of output. Means input is one, but we are sequencing it into a sequence of output. Example, image captioning. We have a single image and we want to caption it. Caption means like we have a dog sitting with a ball. We have an image of that. Now we want to write a caption for it. That dog with a ball. So that is a caption of it. The input was just that picture, just that image, but the output is a sequence of words. So when we have the sequences one-to-many, we can use this recurrent neural network. Many-to-one. A sequence of inputs produced as a single output. Example, sentiment analysis. Binary output from multiple words. Sentiment analysis is what? Like we have watched a movie. Now we want to analyze the sentiments on it into few words. We have watched the whole movie. That means so much of input has been given. Output, the movie was interesting, funny, comedy, entertaining. So this is a sentiment analysis. That means we have so much output, multiple inputs, and we have a single output. So that is a sentiment analysis, many-to-one. Then many-to-many, a sequence of inputs produced as a sequence of output. Like we have in video classification. We have the video into different frames and then we have to classify it. So there we can use this many-to-many. So that are the various use cases where we can use our recurrent neural network. Coming to the next one, that is self-organizing map or SOM. They work with unsupervised data. The earlier that we have talked about, RNN, CNN and the classic neural network, they work with the supervised data. Now we are talking about the unsupervised data models. SOM, the self-organizing map, it works with unsupervised data and it usually helps with dimensionality reduction. The output dimension, it is always two-dimensional for our self-organizing map. So, if we have more than two input features, the output is reduced to two dimension. That is what happens in this self-organizing map. Each synapses connecting our input and output nodes, they have a weight assigned to them. Then each data point, it competes for representation into the model. That is what happens in this self-organizing map. It basically helps with the dimensionality reduction. Now again the question comes that when to use it. When data provided does not contain an output or the Y column we can say. There we can use this self-organizing map. Exploration projects to understand the framework behind a data set. If you want to understand that, we can use this self-organizing map. Creative projects like we are creating some music, text, videos which are produced by the artificial intelligence. There we are using this, in this creative projects we are using this self-organizing map. Then whenever we require dimensionality reduction, definitely we can use our self-organizing maps. Talking about the fifth one, that is the Boltzmann machine. This again works with unsupervised data. But the difference is in the above four models that we have talked about till now, there is one thing in common. These models, they work in a certain direction only. Even though SOMs are unsupervised, they still work in particular direction. How do they work? This input, hidden layer, and the output. That means they're just functioning in one direction. Boltzmann machine, it does not follow a single direction concept. All the nodes, they're connected to each other in a circular kind of hyperspace. That means the output from one can go back to another input. They're connected in the form of circular hyperspace. Now question comes, when to use it? When we are monitoring a system. Since our Boltzmann machine, they will learn to regulate. So when we are monitoring a system, we can use this Boltzmann machine. Building a binary recognition system, we can use this Boltzmann machine. That means whenever we require the data for which we want a circular space, the output should move into the input to other, the input to other. In that case, we use this Boltzmann machines. Talking about the sixth one, that is autoencoder. Autoencoder. They work by automatically encoding data based on the input values, then performing the activation function, and finally decoding the output. What happens? What is the purpose of encoding? To take some input, convert it into some other form. That is what is encoding. And once this encoding is being done, at the end, output end, it should again be decoded. So this encoder, they work by automatically encoding data based on the input values. Then they perform an activation function and they finally decode the data for the output. A bottleneck of some sort imposed on the input values, compressing them into fewer categories. So if some inherent structure exists within the data, the encoder model, it will identify and leverage it to get the output. Where do we use these encoder? For the dimensionality reduction or for the feature detection. Also, to build the powerful recommendation engine that we had talked about, like we talked about the Netflix recommendation engine in the previous unit. For building these powerful recommendation systems, what models are we using? We are using these encoders. These encoders are being used there for the purpose of encoding the data and then further decoding it for the output.